I found out that store is closing. I can't figure out how this app works. Ooh, we ran out of coffee. Everything worked out in the end. And it turned out to be a good restaurant. Phrasal verbs with out show up everywhere in everyday English, and the meaning of out changes depending on the verb. Have you ever been confused by expressions like find out, figure out, run out of, work out, and turn out? If so, you're in luck, because today we're going to look at 5 useful phrasal verbs with out that you can use in everyday English.
Welcome to another Happy English podcast coming to you from New York City. And here's your English teacher, Michael.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks, everyone. It's Michael here from Happy English, and I help people speak English better. And this is Happy English Podcast, episode 1087. Everyday phrasal verbs with out. And by the way, if you're enjoying learning English with me, make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. Let's start with find out. We use find out when we learn or discover some information that we didn't know before. For example, imagine you go to your favorite coffee shop and see a sign on the door saying that they're closing permanently next month. Later, you tell your friend, I found out that the coffee shop is closing. You didn't know that information before, but now you do. Here's another example. Maybe you've been wondering what time a restaurant opens. You could say, I'll check their website and find out. Or perhaps your coworker says, do you know when the meeting starts? You could reply, no, but I'll find out. In everyday conversation, find out is a very natural way to talk about getting new information. By the way, there's a big difference between find and find out. You can find an object or find a person, like, I found a wallet on the sidewalk today. But you find out information, like, I found out that my grandfather was a taxi driver. Next, we have figure out. We use figure out when we understand something after thinking about it, or when we find a solution to a problem. For example, imagine you download a new app, but you really can't understand how to change the settings. You could say, I can't figure out how this app works. You're trying to understand it, but you haven't solved the problem yet. Or maybe your TV suddenly stops working. You check the remote, the power cable, and the settings, and finally you discover that the batteries are dead. You could say, I finally figured out what was wrong. Or maybe you're trying to, build one of those pieces of furniture that they sell at those big stores. And you take home the box and you open it up, and after 30 minutes, you could probably say, I still can't figure out how to put together this desk. Figure out often involves thinking, solving, or deciding. And by the way, find out and figure out are different. If someone tells you the answer, you find out the information. If you think about the problem and discover the answer yourself, you figure it out. For example, I found out that the train was canceled, means you learned the information. I figured out how to get home without the train. That means you solved the problem. Next, let's look at run out of. We use run out of when we use all of something and there's none left. For example, imagine you wake up in the morning, go to make coffee, and discover that the bag is empty. Now that's what I call a crisis. You could say, "Oh no, we ran out of coffee." Or maybe you're cooking dinner and realize there are no eggs left. "We ran out of eggs. I have to run to the store." We can run out of all kinds of things. My phone ran out of battery. We're running out of time. The printer ran out of paper. Next is work out. And this phrasal verb has several meanings, but today let's focus on one very useful conversational meaning. When a situation ends successfully or gets resolved, you can use work out. For example, imagine you're worried about moving to a new apartment because there are several problems with the timing. A week later, everything is settled and you say, everything worked out in the end. The problems were solved and the final result was good. Here's another situation. Your friend is worried about a new job and says, "I'm not sure if this is going to work." You could say, give it some time. I'm sure it'll work out. Or maybe two people have a disagreement, but later they solve their problem. You might say, they talked about it and everything worked out. Work out often gives us the idea that even though there was uncertainty or difficulty, things ended okay. And of course, work out can also mean exercise. I work out at the gym 3 times a week. That's a different meaning, but it's also extremely common. So, context tells us whether workout means exercise or whether a situation has a successful result. And finally, let's look at turn out. We use turn out when we talk about the final result of a situation, especially when that result is different from what we expected. For example, imagine a friend recommends a restaurant that doesn't look very impressive from the outside. You try it anyway, and later you could say, it turned out to be a great restaurant. The final result was better than you expected. Or maybe the weather forecast says it's going to rain all day, so you cancel your outdoor plans. But then the weather is beautiful. You could say, it turned out to be a really nice day. Here's another example. I thought that exam was going to be difficult, but it turned out to be easier than I had expected. Turnout often introduces the result after we had a different expectation. You can also say, it turns out that, when we reveal information that changes our understanding of a situation. For example, it turns out that Jack already knew about the surprise party, or I thought the store was closed, but it turns out that they just moved to a new location. This is a very natural way to introduce unexpected information. So, here's the key idea. We find out information that we didn't know before, and we figure out a problem or something that we don't understand. We run out of something when there's nothing left. When a difficult situation ends successfully, we can say that everything worked out. And when we talk about the final result of a situation, especially an unexpected one, we can use turn out. So there you have it. And keep in mind, the best way to remember English like this and any other word or phrase is to take that word or phrase, write it in a sentence that's true for you or true in your world, and then memorize your sentences. Hey, thanks for listening. And remember, learning another language is not easy, but it's not impossible. And I'm here to help you on your journey.
This podcast was brought to you by Happy English. Please visit myhappyenglish.com. Show your support for Happy English by leaving us a review. Get English, get happy, Happy English.